Thank you. And thank you, Akanksha, for a wonderful introduction. Like they said, my name is Mehtab Kaur, and I'm from the Northern Virginia area. And we're going to be switching gears here just a little bit. We're going to be talking more about what does Sikhi have to say about mental health, and how can we relate to Gurbani, and how can we relate to what Guru Sahib is saying about mental health. And I do want to let everybody know that a lot of this information is pulled from evidence-based research. It is pulled from studies that were conducted through the National Institute of Health, which found correlations, cross correlations with the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, as well as the DSM, which is the manual that Akanksha already talked about. So before we get started, I do want to touch base on some stats. 20.8% of South Asians are more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety, substance abuse disorder, as well as depression. And this also doesn't cover other areas such as sexual abuse, domestic violence, but they're all kind of intertwined within each other. So, and interestingly with this research is that South Asian women are 10 times more likely to fall under the realm of suicidal ideation and navigate towards dealing with their depression through those means. And as well as talking about ages 15 to 24 is where most South Asians will experience a wide range of depressive symptoms, as well as anxiety and major life crises, which doesn't negate from elders going through issues as well, more life changes, but also in this study particularly, they were able to find that 15 to 24 umar ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ you're more likely to exhibit depressive symptoms. Next slide, please. Gujri, there's one more. Yeah, there you go. So this, I'm going to continue talking about this through the study, which was done by NIH. How does Guru Sahib talk about mental health? Gurbani de vich ki likhya talking about mental health. Sadi mansik sehat bare ki kuch likhya ode vich. Guru Sahib is talking about everyday emotions such as sadness, happiness, anger, hatred, as well as other more serious ones such as depression. Ke udasi ki hai, ke jehda eh pagalpan assi sare gal karte ke pagalpan ki hai. Guru Sahib is also talking about that as well. ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ Guru Sahib ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ what is the cause of our emotional disturbances? What is causing our downfall? And as well as their treatment, which I find so fascinating that we are so incredibly lucky to have this tool to navigate our mental health through. So there are etiological references, which are causes of mental health issues written throughout Gurbani. And I was able to pull out certain words such as Garam, Avtar, Naam, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ankar, and Hukam. So the etiology of depression comes through various things such as the 5 vices. The cycle of reincarnation, dunya to mukti nahi milti, because we haven't meditated on Guru Sahib's name at that point. We enjoy so many pleasurable things on earth, and we don't realize that without Guru Sahib's guidance and support and unconditional love, the one who relieves us from that very dark pit in the world, we will never be liberated or finding peace. So that is a little bit about what that study was able to find, is that these are the core concepts within Gurbani, along with many others that tie very closely into the DSM, which is a manual of for diagnosing mental health disorders. If anybody has any questions, please link them down below. And moving forward, there are several factors, such as the ones mentioned before, that could lead an individual towards being more udas and depressed. So a couple of them, feel free to read the list here. They are pretty lengthy. So in the study, they were able to find dukh, karam are actions, diseases, fear, po, maut, bare darna, or any of those related ideations. Tanne mene marne kisi nu, bar bar satana kisi nu, deflecting and projecting a lot of your insecurities and anxieties onto others. Hypocrisy, pakhand karne, paise de naal bahut moh hona, being really, heavily reliant on making money, and that's the only thing in life. Kisi de naal bura pala karna, drinking, resorting to excessive drinking and drugs, and kind of falling under that category. Hopelessness, which is a lot of what everybody talked about here before, as well as, like I said again, the 5 vices, which are excessive and unfulfilled sexual desire, anger, pride, and attachment. And next slide, please. And as everybody, jumped in, and said all these other words such as anhedonia and having that neglect, showing changes in our activity, day-to-day life and activity, are symptoms that Guru Sahib has talked about within the Guru Granth Sahib. And I have attached the Ang where the Shabad was pulled from. So everybody, if you wanted to take a closer look at that, feel free to do so. So anhedonia is that loss of pleasure in activities. Like Akanksha was saying, that ਸਾਡਾ ਜੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ sofa ਤੇ ਬਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ TV ਦੇਖ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ we kind of keep ourselves interacted with the TV and listening to other things but we're not focusing on what's actually going on inside. So losing pleasure in activities that we once enjoyed is what anhedonia is, and Guru Sahib talks very clearly about that as well. Self-neglect is also a concept within Guru Granth Sahib Ji as well. And that's our loss in interest in keeping ourselves, up to date every single day, such as showering, small activities, slowing in changes of psychomotor activity, crying. And I love that Akanksha touched on this as well, that it's not always a bad thing to be crying, but also it can be a symptom of depression, that excessive crying, that need to constantly be overwhelmed, and you are flooded with emotions. And a loss of interest in sexual activity as well. And I know that this is kind of taboo. We don't really talk about this within our community, but in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it is described that we do lose interest in certain activities, which could be a component of our depression. And moving forward, I also want to talk about other concepts mentioned, such as koi cheez nu bhul jana, baar baar koi cheez yaad nahi rehndi, resulting in negative thoughts. And that's the core concept of depression. Again, the crying, loss of sleep, neend nahi aandi raat nu ya baar baar raat nu uthi jana te pede pede supne aune, loss of appetite, khan nu ji nahi karta, reference to sadness after the person has been separated from Guru Sahib in particular, and everything else is fikka, and you don't find any pleasure in anything that you're doing. Another one is this could be manifested as a physical concept as well, such as headaches and migraines, or any physical tension in the body, but heaviness on the head. I feel super depressed because of that. And also, like I said before, poor self-care and not dressing up properly. So these are all symptoms that Guru Sahib has provided for us to see very closely, that we are not far from mental health. We are not far from the idea that we can take care of ourselves and we can navigate through all these emotions through Gurbani. And Guru Sahib has given us so many beautiful tools, such as, Gurmat Sangeet, and we're talking about playing, our instruments of our gurus and getting through mental health issues through that, and relying on Shabads and Gurbani to kind of move, engage ourselves through. And, I do want to bring this point forward, is Kirtan has a very meditative, medicinal quality to it. And when we often rely on our saj, we can get through this, whether it's physical, we're doing Kirtan through our saj, or we're doing, martial arts, we're doing Gatka or Kirtan, what have you. These are all tools that Guru Sahib has provided for us to navigate through with our emotions. And I just wanted to touch on that in particular, that it's not just what Guru Sahib is saying within the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it's also the tools that we were provided within our Sikh Jivan. So what is Guru Sahib's approach in order to help alleviate a lot of these symptoms? So Guru Sahib has a very solution-focused approach, and solution-focused technique is actually used in modern-day therapy as well. Is that these are short-term solutions provided to us, and in aiding how can I navigate through my depression, how can I navigate through my anxiety, and how can I reach this state of bliss. So Guru Sahib's cure to illness is Sarab Rog Ka Aukhad Naam, that the Naam is the solution and the remedy to all of our illnesses. Naam is that connection and segue into dismantling our home and our ego. When we're disconnected, there is home there. Like before, our Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar all tend to get heightened, and they're more prominent, and our self-compassion becomes our low self-worth. And within that low self-worth, we tend to lose healthy boundaries with ourselves, healthy boundaries with our families, healthy boundaries with our day-to-day activities. Somebody who might start drinking to find that as a solution in order to, work through their day-to-day stress. They might tend to go towards that. And I did, yeah, you can go to the next slide. And feel free to also, I'm going to say this again, ask some questions in the chat if you have them. And I know I'm keeping this pretty brief, but there are many other solutions to this as well. But the therapeutic context within Gurbani and within Guru Granth Sahib Ji is equating Vaheguru's name as medicine. And this is where I'm going to touch base on more the evidence-based research in terms of meditation and what does that actually do for us. Because oftentimes we'll hear, you can go to camps, you can go to Gurdwara, and we'll hear, ke, tu paath karya kar, tu aa karya kar, tu wo karya kar. But in reality, are we actually understanding that? Are we actually taking away, how is that actually going to help me scientifically, you know? So equating Vaheguru's name as medicine is a beautiful tool that Guru Sahib gave us, and the emphasis on that meditation. So the shabad here is, Aukhat tero naam diyal. Your name is the medicine, and I'm, you know, by using that, that's how I'll navigate through all of my issues. Har jab jiyade chute chutiye gurmukh Jine Aap. Chanting the name of Guru, oh my soul, you'll be emancipated. And within this, I want to point out the fact that, you know, Guru Granth Sahib Ji in general is not a pharmacopoeia of, you know, actual medicine it's providing. The only names that in this study in particular that they found was Bhakti, Ardas, Shabad Kirtan, Naam Japna, Ustat, Sakhiyan, Gurbani, all help with the long-term control and management of depression. And that's how we attain that eternal peace. And this is also how, importantly, how Seva and Simran kind of work hand in hand. I think you can go to the next slide. And like I said before, there has been a study done on this. After 8 hours of meditation, individuals experience clear genetic and molecular changes, including decreased levels of pro-inflammatory genes. This essentially would make one physically recover from stressful situations a lot more quickly. And I want you guys to put this to the test. There's so many different apps out there, such as the Calm app, such as Be Happy or Happify, you know, and there's different types of tools that we can use. We can set a timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what have you. And these are all based on evidence-based research studies done before that meditation is a great tool to navigate through any sort of stress that you're dealing with. All you're doing is you're becoming more present within your body, and you're paying attention to different parts that where you might exhibit that anxiety, whether it's a physical symptom or more of an emotional rumination that's taking place. And I will pass the rest of the presentation on to Amandeep, who is in Patiala and joining us today. But I also wanted to address again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them below.